Okay, so in our last chat, we were just talking about people not looking at their current customers is a great source to make money. And that gets back to which Ryan started out mentioning, the whole testimonials and referrals, right? Being advocates, right? And that is here are people who you can easily get to go out and say great things about you. And here's the great thing. Like, actually, I had a couple books here. This is a great one. The Death of Advertising and the Rise of PR from actually, was this recent Trout? Oh no, it was actually Al Reese and Laura Reese's daughter. But the premise of the book basically is, if I come and tell you how great I am, there's no credibility, right? You're going to question the credibility. But if Ryan goes out and says, hey, Joe's a great guy, he knows what he's talking about, you're going to believe him because you kind of feel like, hey, he doesn't have this vested interest, right? Or not necessarily. And that's where testimonials, referrals, consumer advocates, right? Your advocates for your business can be amazingly influential.
Yeah, I totally agree, Joe. I think that how I would position it is, if you are a new business or even an existing business or a business that's not known to someone, so you're trying to engage a new prospect, it's absolutely essential that you build trust, legitimacy, and authority. So they trust who you are. They understand you're legit. You didn't just turn up yesterday. You're not just some fly-by-night kind of cowboy. And that you have the authority and you speak with confidence and clarity about what is the service that you're offering. And alongside that, I think the most powerful advocates are people, human beings who can champion your business. And it may be that it's a big company, or it may be that it's a mom and pop down the road who you did a small job for, but that's a really powerful advocacy. And the other element I would add in this area is what I call trust marks, or other services or companies or associations that you belong to that confer legitimacy and authority. So if you are a licensed person, if you have a certificate or an accreditation or a certificate from the Chamber of Commerce, all of these things are roots in the community, roots in the industry that show that they elevate you above the competition.
Authority.
The real deal.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So I think those are the types of things that you should be thinking about around this area.
This was a great book by Dan Kennedy, Trust-Based Marketing. It brings up a lot of that stuff of establishing trust. And one of the things, by the way, one of the easy things is going out and publishing, or, writing a small pamphlet or a book or doing videos or training, right? And teach, and basically people start respecting you and thinking you're an authority. And the more you do that, the more they start believing you, right? It's actually, I have another book from him. It was really interesting. It was on this guy that he was basically like he took, what was it, like sheep gonads and implanted them in people. And yet he was he was a multi-millionaire. I mean, he made all this money because he was a total PR person and kept getting the word out as this. Everyone trusted him and believed him. But it was really a fascinating book on how he went around and did all this stuff. A little bit over the line at times. He was spending some time in jail.
I think companies, small businesses that are thinking about this in their business, I think, as well as obviously putting those kind of trust marks, those kind of endorsements out there on their marketing material or in video form or whatever, you need to invite people, encourage people to leave you a review or offer a testimonial, and give them an opportunity to refer you, because it's
an easy way, right?
An easy way, yeah. So there's as low friction as possible, as easy as possible for them to recommend you to someone.
Amen.
else.
That was this one is also from Dan Kennedy, Maximum Referrals, and it's how to get referrals and testimonials and how important it is. This book goes through, I'd say, like at least a dozen ways that you can get ease of getting them, ease of letting them customers. Like, one is you create a brochure. When you find these people that are really passionate about your business, print them up brochure. Don't just say, hey, can you tell someone? Don't give them a business card, right? Create something that's really significant, because they will hand it out and they will talk to people and preach your word, right? But again, spend a little bit of money, give them a few, if you can, if it's ethical, give them some sort of a reward for doing it, or just be very, very thankful, or have parties to recognize them. But there's some great tips and tricks.
Yeah, this kind of what's loosely called these days social proof, or human validation of your quality of your service, is extremely powerful, this advocacy. And there are ways through social media networks and through prompting people to offer a testimonial on your marketing material that you can encourage others to to use your service.
Yeah, I wanted to hone in on one thing you said here, because you mentioned it earlier and just a bit right now. Not all referrals are quote unquote equal in value, right? And I was talking to one of the companies I'm helping is a guy that does foundation work, and we were chit chatting about how is he going to position his company, this and that, and I said definitely I'm building a website for him, and I said we're going to have a page that has testimonials from past people. And while we were talking it through, he's like, oh, and I have a couple engineer guys that, will say that they will come on and recommend me. I'm like, holy cow, right? Here are the people who are truly experts, engineers are saying this guy does a great job, right? Like, I'm going to totally believe that guy, and much more than like me saying it, right? I'm the homeowner. And yeah, it's great. He did a great job, but here's an expert saying this guy is doing a good job. And like, wow, that's, I'm like, dude, that's amazing. Right. We gotta get them and show them.
A couple of other things I would just add on this topic is, there are lots of services like Yelp and Google and Facebook and others where you can rate people or be recommended. It's really powerful if you have a verbal or written recommendation rather than just a simple star rating, because it adds context. Context is really important. And also remember what I said before about authenticity. So if you have 200,000 5-star reviews, that actually doesn't help you insofar as it doesn't necessarily look legit. So don't be downhearted if someone gives you 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 for 2 reasons. First, it adds to the authenticity. Not everyone will always love your service. Okay.
Right.
And also you can get kudos on how you react to situations. So if something tanks and you get 2 out of 5 stars, and you personally write a reply to their review and give context and solve the problem, that actually is to your great benefit, that you care enough about your customers to engage them.
Yeah. So I have a couple, Udemy courses, and one of them is the title. I don't remember the full title, but the beginning part is Intro to AutoHotkey, and then it has something like desktop automation, whatever, right? One review I got was like a 1-star review, and I read it, and the guy says misleading title, and I'm like, it was an intro to auto. Like I what do you mean it was? So I'm like, how do I write in here of like, yeah, what was misleading about it was an intro to auto, like it was funny, but I think if I had just left it there, it wouldn't have been as, people see the 1-star, but I think by commenting of like, yeah, anyway, it was pretty funny of like, to your point, you can deal with them. And also to your point, you don't want to necessarily get them deleted, unless they're completely, maybe your competitors doing stuff.
Well, the example I would give is this. I think this will resonate with the viewers. Is you can turn an adversary into an advocate very easily. And the context I would give, or the example would be the anecdote. If you think about a restaurant, so you're at a restaurant and the meal is cold and it's rubbish and it's crap, and you say, I want to send it back. Okay,
right.
So they've got 2 options. They can charge you for it and you can be annoyed and you can leave and be unhappy. Or they can comp it, they can give you another thing, they can give you a free bottle of wine, and you leave there thinking, I had a problem, and they were extraordinary about how they solved that problem.
Yeah.
So you've turned someone who was negatively disposed to the business, the restaurant, into a champion for you.
Yeah.
And in the same way, the people that read those reviews, and you're right, some people do it because they're malicious, some people do it because they've got no too much time on their hands. Some people just do it because they didn't have a good time in your business. But you can reply and not just neutralize the negativity of that review, but actually turn it around and use it as a positive opportunity to celebrate your level of service. And if you are someone with you just have to think about it in a common sense way. If you are on Google or a 5-star rating system and you have a rating above 4, that's great. Are you more likely to trust a company with 150 reviews at 4.6 or 15 reviews at 5? Well, you're most likely to trust more reviews and a more balanced perspective on that company, because no company is perfect. Every company has challenges, and how you react to those challenges and how you validate your customer service is really important. You can do that through reviews.
No, I totally agree with that. I will, when I'm looking on Amazon in particular, right? If I see a product that has five-star reviews, I pay it no mind whatsoever, right? But if I see one that has 1,000 reviews, and even if their score is a little lower, like 4 point something, like I will take that any day over 20 to 30 reviews of a high number.
Yeah, because unfortunately, people do game the system. So there are ways, common sense ways, of volume of reviews, and the responsiveness of the business owner and the quality of the post. So when you see 5-star reviews with no comments, or you see very high ratings, it actually is counterproductive often. So keep that in mind in the idea of testimonials and reviews. The last thing I would add on testimonials and reviews, we've talked about small businesses and companies, and I think we'll come on to this in a later session, but it's also relevant to think about referrals and testimonials from networks. So your Chamber of Commerce or one of your customers, there's other communities of interest, so people who have a connection with your business that you can also potentially leverage to give you their logo to put on your website, your marketing material, or to put you in their trusted list of directory of service providers, or the president of an association can give you their recommendation. They obviously carry some additional authority as an office holder. So there's lots of different ways and shapes that testimonials and referrals can work, but it's an absolutely valid and very powerful way to make a stronger connection with your prospects and customers.
I was looking, and I think this may not be the right book, but it's close to it. Jonathan Lieberman. I have several books from him, and he has some great stuff. But one of them is how to get free forgiveness from anybody, and I have actually a chapter I excerpted from one of them, but it talks so much of, like, when you do have a negative thing, right? How do you get forgiveness, and how do you get them to be? Because you said earlier on, you can get someone from a negative to a positive, right? And it's part of, you look at, who was it? J&J, I think, right? Was that with the Tylenol? Who was Tylenol back in the 80s, right? Where they went in and they ripped everything out of the store, and they did everything, and they got amazing more business because of how they reacted to a bad thing. Right. But yeah, it's not necessarily in the world. It's how you react, can change everything.
In the UK, there was something opposite. So also, I mean, the flip side of this is never speak negatively about your product.
About what?
Never speak negatively about your product, especially publicly. Because this sounds, again, obvious, but there was a famous incident in the 1990s in the UK where there was a public speaking event, and the owner of the jewelry chain talked about his product being cheap rubbish in a flippant way, but the next day his share price tanked, and a couple of years later his company was closed. So you've got to make sure that you always present a positive face, but make sure that you can turn those customers into raving fans, or at least give them the opportunity to talk about your product if they have a positive experience.
Yeah. But again, the other one I was going to mention, and this is a little bit of the whole black hat, gray hat kind of area, but I have used several times. I have a couple businesses, and what's nice is having some people, especially like a Facebook page, having some people who have liked it. And so there are ways you can go out there and get, here's the thing with my method is it's really, I got it done for about a penny a piece, but I have like over 3,000 likes on my business page. The difference is, like, they're not actually my real customers, right? And I'm not out just doing link farming. There's just some tricks you can do. But part of, when you have a presence of a page is, if you see there's 20 people have liked something, I think it's back to the Amazon example, right? You want to have more than just your friends and family that have liked something, right? So go out of your way, incentivize it if you can. I'd say incentivize it, but don't incentivize it and say, give me 5 stars. Just incentivize the getting of a review, and then, be honest with them.
Yeah. We do that with my wife's business. We ask every client. I think we do it without fail. I think it's very seldom do we not ask for them to give us a review. And that works really well. And she's got a very high rating, and they're powerful advocates. They work, they always write a personal anecdote about their experience. The other thing I would say, you touched on a really good point about this, the flip side of this social proof. And I think this particularly refers to people's websites. So when you engage with a company, you're trying to make a judgment on whether you trust them, whether you think they will perform the service or provide a product which is does your job, the thing that you want. And a lot of people tend to want to include or insert social media links and other things. When you don't have a very significant social media presence, this can actually undermine you. So if you, for example, unfortunately, because it's simple and ubiquitous now, a lot of people will plug in these social media things. If you have 10 fans or likes of your page on social media, on Facebook, let's say, and you plug that into your website, you actually don't look very popular. So while you want to show that you have a community who are interested in your business, until you reach a certain threshold, those types of connections, if you like, can actually be counterproductive. Much better to take a few of the excellent comments from those 10 people and put them on your website and use them as endorsements or testimonials, rather than link to a page or a Facebook widget or something that has 10 likes, because it actually shows you're unpopular, that nobody uses you, that nobody engages with you, that you shouldn't be trusted. So whilst the intent is very positive and I would encourage it, you just need to have a sense check when you do these things. By all means include them, but perhaps when you get to a sufficiently critical mass, I would, depending on the type of business, perhaps, definitely a few hundred, enough to be beyond your extended family. At that point, then you can start to use those things, and they can be powerful. But I think very early on, counterproductive if you're not careful.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm curious, actually, I don't think we've ever spoke about this. A lot of the people, and even on their business cards, I get them and they're using their Gmail. And to me, and maybe it's just my age, but when I see that, I tend to doubt the validity of, like, is this really, is this guy really in business? Because he doesn't even have his own, either A, a website, or B, his own email address attached to his website. How do you feel? Like, is that?
Yeah, I know. I totally agree with you. Anyone out there who's watching this today who has a Gmail account, so I'd say two things. First, you can buy very inexpensively a domain name, so you have your own name. So you're investing in your profit, your brand, building equity in your company, not trying to boost the profitability of Alphabet, the parent of Gmail. So you're not advertising Gmail. And the second thing is, if you absolutely love Gmail, that's absolutely no problem. Your email can still go to Gmail. It's just that externally, you're promoting yourself, building equity in your brand, talking about your company, and you instantly differentiate yourself and elevate yourself above those people who could have started yesterday with a Gmail account. So you look more legit. Okay. It's one of those trust factors that's extremely easy and inexpensive to tick. And you should definitely do that right now if you haven't done it.
Well, and actually, totally agree with everything you said. You nailed it. The one thing I'd add on to it, because some of the people I'm talking to, when they say, well, I want a website, but this guy came to me and said, for $5,000, I'll build you and I'm like, dude, you can do it in WordPress yourself. And you buy the domain, host it somewhere. Maybe let's say you're spending $100 a year, right? I mean, that's I think a fair assessment if you can do something like this. Probably get it for less if you really tried, but $100 a year to have your own domain, have your email address. I mean, but I think it's a really good point also, which I do, I'm sure you do too, is I probably have a dozen email addresses from different businesses, different things. In Gmail, I have checking them all, right? So it all syncs to my phone. I can look at them and I can reply within Gmail, and it still goes through that email account.
Well, to give you an example, I mean, how I would do it if I was starting a business tomorrow, I would definitely have my own domain name. I think it's important. The second thing is that you don't have to have a web. I think a website is important, but if you're absolutely, counting the pennies, you could just have a single page.
Right.
But some presence would be useful. And then the third thing I would say is, if you have, normally when you have your own domain name, so your own website address, you can create, usually depending on the provider you choose, as many email addresses as you want.
Right.
So you could co-opt or have virtual employees. You could go from presenting yourself as a single company
Yeah.
with a single amateurish Gmail account to having an accounts department or a person who works in customer service and a different person who works in sales. So you're building legitimacy, you're building trust, because you may all have maybe one person, but the perception is that you are legit and you are bigger.
And it's not unfortunate, but I wish we had compartmentalized this into a separate video, because the other thing that what you can do on top of that all is the tracking, right? Like you can create a different email address. Let's say you have different business cards or something like that, or add a parameter to the URL so you can tell here's where people came from, right? I had this business card, or I had this brochure I did. There's so many things you can do. Once you understand your tracking, it's so critical, right? Once you understand that, then you can say, I'm going to go do more of that, right? Wow, I got a lot from this. And we're using in our WordPress, there's a free plugin called Pretty Links. And you can create, basically, they look like short links, but each one has tracking, and I can create different ones, and I can add a parameter. It gets a little too technical, but I can keep the same Pretty Link and add a couple letters and put them in different ads and tell where people are coming from, right, and how effective they are. Or we're going to do them on our business cards, and when we hand them out, now we know when we went to this site, because business cards are what, like $20 to get 100 or more. We can print individual ones and be like, hey, we'll try them and allow us to know when we did this a certain event, how effective it was, how many people actually did something off of it.
I think the takeaway from this session as you're watching this is what we're trying to say here is you've got to do things that really reinforce the legitimacy, that build trust in your company and give you the authority to speak with confidence, and the potential customer can trust you. And in the example Joe gave of the Gmail account or Hotmail or AOL or whatever it is, they are ubiquitous. Everybody can have one of those. Your grandmother has one, mum and pop has one, and you need to differentiate yourself from that, because in a way, it's so easy to have those email addresses that I could dream up a company right now, and 5 minutes later, I can have a Gmail account. That doesn't show that I'm professional and operating at the level above your competitors who have a Gmail account. It's not that Gmail is wrong or Gmail is bad. Gmail is fantastic. You can still use Gmail, but externally, you look legit, that you are clued in enough to have your own brand being promoted, not someone else's.
I'm gonna add one more, and then we'll round this out. Because not only it's funny is you mentioned, what was it earlier with the the not enough likes and this and that, people will think you're not actually qualified. But I'll see some people on their business cards have an AOL.com email address, and you talk about, like, when I see that, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you're obviously not on the cutting edge of any sort of technology if you have an AOL. I'm sorry, but you know what? That is a big tell. And yet, like when I was at TI, we'd still have. I mean, it was like 1% to 2%, but people still had their AOL email addresses, and it was it's just such a red flag.
Yes, absolutely. So get rid of the Gmail.
All right, cheers.